Elias Carter had lived alone for so long that silence felt like an old friend. Every morning, he woke before the sun reached over the distant hills, stepping out of his small wooden cabin to breathe in the cool desert air. The land stretched far and wide, painted in soft colors of gold and brown, with tall grass bending gently in the wind. It was a quiet place, too quiet for some people, but Elias had grown used to it. His farm sat on a wide patch of open land miles away from the nearest town. He kept a few cattle, planted small fields of corn and beans, and took care of everything with his own 2 hands. The work was tiring at times, but it filled his days and kept his mind occupied. Elias had once dreamed of having a family, a lively home filled with laughter and warm voices. But life had carried him in a different direction. Over the years, one by one, people he cared for had drifted away or passed on. What remained was the farm, the soil, and the endless desert sky. He took care of them because they were the only things he had left. Even so, a deep loneliness lived inside him. Sometimes he would catch himself talking softly to his animals, or humming old songs his mother used to sing. Other times, he simply sat on his porch at night, watching the stars appear one by one, imagining stories behind each tiny light. One late afternoon, after finishing his chores, Elias decided he needed a few supplies from the small town several miles away. He filled his water canteen, tied it to his saddle, climbed on his horse, and set off. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the ground, and the sky glowed with warm orange light. The ride was peaceful. Only the sound of the horse's hooves and the soft rustle of the wind kept him company. On the way back, night began to creep in. Elias preferred to ride home before dark, but he did not rush. The moon, bright and full, rose above the hills, giving him enough light to see the road ahead. As he guided his horse along a narrow path near a rocky canyon, he suddenly heard something unusual, a faint sound carried by the wind. It was hard to tell what it was at first. It could have been an animal or a trick of the wind. But something told Elias to stop and listen. He pulled the reins gently, and his horse slowed to a quiet halt. Elias tilted his head, listening more closely. There it was again, this time clearer. It sounded like a voice, low and strained, as if someone was calling out but too tired to shout loudly. Elias felt a slight worry twist inside his chest. He looked around. The canyon walls rose steeply on one side, and a small cluster of bushes lined the other. Curiosity and concern pushed him to investigate. He climbed off his horse and tied the reins around a sturdy branch. Then he walked toward the sound, stepping carefully on the uneven ground. The closer he got, the more certain he became that someone needed help. After a few minutes, he reached a dip between 2 large rocks, where the path curved sharply. There, he saw something that made him stop in surprise. A young man, dressed in traditional Apache clothing, lay on the ground beside an exhausted horse. The horse was breathing heavily but appeared unharmed, though one of its legs was caught awkwardly under a fallen branch. The young man looked conscious but weak, his face tense with discomfort. Elias slowly approached, making sure his steps were gentle. He didn't want to startle the young man. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. The young man opened his eyes and looked up at him. Relief washed over his face, though he struggled to sit up. "Please," he whispered. "My horse slipped. I cannot move my leg. It happened earlier today." Elias knelt beside him. "Let me help you." He worked carefully, lifting the branch off the horse's leg and guiding the animal to stand. The horse trembled a little, but did not appear badly hurt. Then Elias turned his attention to the young man, examining his leg. It was swollen and clearly painful, but not broken. "You need rest," Elias said. "My cabin isn't far. I can take you there." The young man nodded, too tired to argue. Elias helped him stand, supporting his weight as they walked back toward the horse. The effort was slow and careful, but eventually they reached Elias's horse. The young man climbed onto it with Elias's assistance, and Elias walked beside him, leading the way and ensuring he didn't fall. The journey back to the cabin took longer than usual, but the quiet night air was calm and cool. The moon lit their path, guiding them through the tall grass and across small streams. Elias kept checking on the young man, asking if he felt dizzy or in pain, but the young man only shook his head and remained strong. When they finally reached the cabin, Elias helped him inside and offered a bed near the fireplace. He lit a warm fire, boiled water, and prepared a simple meal of bread and stew. The young man accepted the food gratefully, though he ate slowly, clearly exhausted. "My name is Elias," the farmer said, trying to offer comfort through conversation. The young man paused, then nodded respectfully. "I am Taza," he replied. "My family is part of a nearby Apache settlement. I was searching for missing horses when I fell." Elias listened carefully, nodding. He had met Apache people before, mostly peaceful interactions during rare trading days. He knew they were strong, proud, and respectful, living closely with the land. Taza seemed calm and wise beyond his years, though now weakened by his injury. "You're safe here," Elias said. "Rest tonight. Tomorrow, if your leg is better, you can return to your people." Taza smiled faintly. "Thank you. You did not have to help me, but you did. I will remember this." Elias felt a warmth in his chest, a feeling he had not felt in a long time. He shrugged lightly. Anyone would have done the same, but deep down, he wondered if that was true. Many travelers avoided helping strangers in remote areas, fearful of misunderstandings or dangers. But Elias had acted without thinking. Kindness came naturally to him, even if life had not always been kind in return. As Taza rested by the fire, Elias sat near the window, staring out into the moonlit land. The night was peaceful again, but it carried a new sense of connection. The silence no longer felt as empty as before. A stranger now slept under his roof, a stranger he had saved. Elias wondered what tomorrow would bring. But for the first time in a long while, he felt hopeful. Taza drifted into a deep sleep, his breathing steady and calm. Elias covered him with an extra blanket to keep him warm. Then he stepped outside for a moment, letting the quiet night wrap around him. He looked up at the stars, their gentle glow reminding him that even in the vastness of the world, unexpected connections could still find their way into a lonely life. He whispered to himself, "Maybe things are changing." With that thought, he returned inside, letting the door close softly behind him. The cabin, once filled only with silence, now held the soft sound of another person's breathing, a small but powerful reminder that any act of kindness can start a story much bigger than one expects. The next morning arrived quietly, just as it always did on Elias's farm. But something about the air felt different. The early sunlight slipped through the cracks of the cabin walls, painting soft lines across the wooden floor. Birds chirped outside, greeting the new day with cheerful sounds that made the world feel fresh and alive. Elias sat at the small wooden table, sipping warm tea while watching over Taza, who still lay resting near the fireplace. The young man looked much better than the night before. His breathing was steady, and the tension on his face had eased. Elias felt relieved. Helping someone in need had brought a gentle warmth to his heart, a feeling he had not felt in a long time. After a while, Taza slowly opened his eyes. He blinked at the morning light and shifted slightly as he tested his leg. Though it was still sore, it no longer hurt as much as it had the previous night. Elias smiled at him kindly. "How are you feeling today?" he asked. Taza sat up with care. "Better," he replied softly. "Your help saved me. I can stand now, I think." Elias nodded. "Good. You'll need a little more rest before traveling, but you're getting stronger." Taza looked around the small cabin. His eyes wandered over the shelves filled with jars of beans, dried herbs, and a few old books. He noticed the handmade tools, the neatly folded blankets, and the simple but peaceful life the farmer lived. Something about the place felt honest and calming. "You live alone?" Taza asked. "Yes," Elias answered, stirring the tea in his cup. "I've been on this farm many years. It keeps me busy." Taza nodded slowly, understanding more than Elias had spoken. Though the farmer did not say the words, loneliness could be felt in the quiet corners of the cabin. Still, There was kindness here as well, kindness woven into every object Elias had crafted with his hands. Before more could be said, a sound drifted through the air, soft at first, like distant rolling thunder. Elias paused, listening. The sound grew steadily louder, but it did not resemble a storm. It was rhythmic, steady, and unmistakable. Hoofbeats, many of them. Elias set down his cup, his brow lifted with surprise. Visitors were rare out in this quiet land, and certainly not in such numbers. He walked to the door, pushed it open, and stepped outside, shading his eyes from the bright sun. What he saw made him freeze where he stood. A long line of riders approached across the open field. Their horses moved in smooth, graceful patterns, the sunlight shimmering off their coats. The riders wore traditional Apache clothing, colorful fabrics, carefully braided hair, and ornaments that caught the morning light. Their arrival was peaceful and organized, giving the impression of a respectful visit rather than anything troubling. At the front of the group rode a tall man with an air of calm authority. His posture was strong, and his expression carried wisdom earned from years of guiding people. Elias recognized instantly that this man was Taza's father, the Apache chief. Behind him, several other riders followed in neat formation. Women, men, and youth, each carrying themselves with quiet dignity. Elias counted at least 24 people. Perhaps more. Inside the cabin, Taza heard the sounds and tried to stand. He leaned on the wall for support and stepped outside, careful with his healing leg. When he saw the approaching group, his face brightened with relief. "My father," he said softly. Elias stepped back slightly, unsure what to expect. He felt no fear, only a quiet curiosity. He had always treated the Apache people with respect, and he hoped this moment would remain peaceful and friendly. As the riders reached the front of the cabin, they brought their horses to a gentle stop. Dust rose lightly around their feet before settling back into the earth. The tall chief dismounted gracefully, and Taza did the same, though with a limp. The chief walked toward him and placed both hands on his son's shoulders. The expression in his eyes was full of warmth, relief, gratitude, and love. He spoke to Taza in a gentle voice, words of comfort and welcome. Elias stepped quietly to the side, not wanting to interrupt their reunion. After a moment, the chief turned to face Elias. His expression shifted into one of deep respect. He stepped forward and placed his hand over his heart in a traditional gesture of thanks. "You cared for my son," he said in calm, steady English. "He tells me you helped him when he could not move." Elias nodded modestly. "I just did what anyone would do. He needed help. I was there." The chief's eyes softened. "Not everyone chooses to help. Your heart is kind, and we honor that." Several members of the Apache group murmured in agreement, their faces showing appreciation. Taza stepped forward as well, supporting his weight but standing proudly. "Father," Taza said, "Elias carried me, helped my horse, prepared food, and stayed with me through the night. Without him, I would not be standing here today." The chief took a deep breath, the emotion of the moment settling over him. "I am grateful," he said. "A parent's heart thanks you more deeply than words can say." Elias felt slightly embarrassed by such strong praise. His life had been quiet for so long that he was not used to anyone noticing his efforts. He rubbed his hands together and replied quietly, "I'm glad your son is safe." Another moment passed, as the chief studied Elias not with suspicion, but with thoughtful respect. It was clear he was considering how to honor such kindness. Apache tradition placed great value on gratitude and building strong relationships with those who acted with good intention. "You have helped our family," the chief said finally, "and we do not forget such things." Elias shook his head gently. "I did not help for any reward." "We know," the chief replied with a small smile. "That is why the reward must be meaningful." Elias felt unsure about what that meant, but he sensed sincerity rather than pressure. The riders behind the chief dismounted quietly, spreading out in a calm, respectful way. Some brought baskets of gifts, woven blankets, handmade pottery, bundles of herbs, and small wooden carvings. They placed them carefully near the cabin door, offering them as tokens of appreciation. Elias looked at the gifts in surprise. He had rarely received anything from anyone, much less such thoughtful, handmade items. "You honor me," he said softly. "And now," the chief continued, "we wish to honor you further. But first, we must share a peaceful meal together." The Apache visitors began laying out blankets on the grass, forming a gathering space. Some prepared food, fresh bread, dried fruits, roasted vegetables, simple but delicious offerings meant to celebrate gratitude. Taza walked beside Elias, moving slowly but proudly. "My father does not take kindness lightly," he explained. "He believes in giving back to those who give without asking." Elias nodded, still overwhelmed but touched by the sincerity of the gathering. His quiet farm had never seen so many people or so much warmth all at once. The meal became a peaceful celebration. Laughter floated through the air, and friendly conversations filled the space. Elias found himself talking with people he had never met before, learning small pieces of their lives, and sharing stories about the farm. For the first time in many years, he felt surrounded by genuine company, not noise or chaos, but calm, respectful companionship. The chief watched all of this with thoughtful eyes. He understood that Elias, though strong and capable, carried a quiet loneliness inside him, and he felt strongly that this man deserved more than solitude and silence. As the meal came to an end, and the soft afternoon sun warmed the field, the chief stepped forward once more. He stood tall and dignified as he addressed Elias in front of everyone. "Your act of kindness has touched us," the chief said. "And tomorrow morning, we will offer something more, something important. You may accept or decline freely. No pressure will be placed upon you." Elias looked puzzled but nodded politely. "Whatever it is, I'm honored." The chief smiled warmly. "Then rest tonight, for tomorrow brings a new path." Elias didn't know what that path would be. But for the first time in a long while, he felt that life might be shifting towards something unexpected, something hopeful. Elias woke early the next morning, long before the sun rose. The sky was still a deep shade of blue, and only a few stars remained, twinkling faintly before disappearing into daylight. He stepped outside his cabin quietly, careful not to wake Taza, who was still sleeping peacefully inside. The air felt cool and soft on his face, carrying the earthy scent of early dawn. He looked out across the open field, where the Apache visitors had camped for the night. Small fires glowed, their warm orange light flickering gently as the people prepared for the new day. Some were already awake, tending to the horses or speaking softly around the fires. Their movements were calm and unhurried, as if they were in perfect harmony with the land. Elias watched them for a moment. He felt something he hadn't felt in years, a sense of belonging, even if only briefly. The sight of people working together, sharing the morning air, made his heart feel light. He remembered what the chief had said the previous day, that they had something important to offer him. Elias still didn't know what it was, and though he felt a little nervous, he trusted that it would be given with kindness. A few minutes later, Taza stepped out of the cabin, leaning lightly on a wooden staff Elias had carved for him during the night. Taza smiled when he saw him. "You wake early," Taza said. "Old habits," Elias replied with a soft smile. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes," Taza nodded. "Today is special for my people. My father has planned something with great care." Elias felt a small flutter in his chest. "Do you know what it is?" Taza nodded again, though he kept his expression gentle. "You will understand soon." Before Elias could ask more, the chief approached them, walking with calm dignity. His steps were steady, and his eyes held a warm glow. "Good morning, Elias," the chief said. "The day greets you kindly." "And you," Elias replied respectfully. The chief studied Elias for a moment, as though making sure he was comfortable. Then he raised his hand and gave a small signal to the group behind him. Slowly, the Apache visitors gathered together in a broad circle, creating an open space in the middle. Elias felt a curious mix of wonder and uncertainty. He stood quietly as the chief guided him to the open area. "Elias," the chief began, "our people believe strongly in gratitude. When a person helps us from the goodness of their heart, we honor them. Yesterday, we shared food and gifts with you, but today, we bring a deeper tradition." Elias listened carefully, wanting to understand each word. The chief continued, "In our culture, when someone saves the life of a leader's child, we offer them the chance to meet families who wish to form strong friendships or future bonds. This is not a demand. It is not a duty. It is a gift of choice." Elias nodded slowly, still unsure of what he was meant to expect. At that moment, the circle gently opened. From among the Apache group, 20 women stepped forward. They were dressed in beautiful, colorful clothing decorated with beads, ribbons, and delicate patterns. Each one carried herself with grace and confidence. Some looked calm and serene, others bright and cheerful, but all of them walked with purpose. Elias's eyes widened slightly. He had never seen such a sight. The women formed a line before him, each smiling kindly and respectfully. The chief explained softly, "These are young women from our community. They volunteered to come today because they heard of your kindness. Each arrives with her family's blessing. Their presence is a sign of respect, not obligation." Elias took a slow breath. He felt overwhelmed, not in a fearful way, but in a deeply touched and humbled way. He had never imagined that helping Taza would lead to something so meaningful and ceremonial. I don't know what to say," Elias whispered. "You say nothing yet," the chief replied with a gentle smile. "Only listen. Today, each woman will speak with you, not as a prize, not as a reward, but as a person. You will learn about them, and they will learn about you. If you find someone whose spirit feels connected to yours, you may choose to continue knowing that person. If not, we still honor you the same." Elias nodded slowly. He felt the sincerity in every word. The chief stepped back, allowing the women to come forward. One by one, they introduced themselves. Some told him about their families. Others spoke of their hobbies, crafts, weaving, cooking, caring for children, teaching younger members of the tribe, or gathering herbs from the land. They spoke with warmth, laughter, and honesty. Elias listened to each one carefully. He replied simply, telling them about his farm, his quiet life, his work, and the loneliness he had carried for years. Surprisingly, many of the women listened with interest. Some admired his strength and independence. Others respected his gentle nature. A small group of people sat on blankets nearby, watching the interactions in a peaceful and encouraging manner. The air was filled with soft conversation and occasional laughter. There was no pressure, no rush, no uncomfortable feeling, just calm, human connection. After each woman spoke with Elias, they joined their families again, giving him space to meet the next. The entire morning passed in this warm exchange of stories, smiles, and simple but meaningful conversation. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Elias noticed something. While each woman was kind, polite, and thoughtful, only one stood out to him in a special way. Her name was Nayeli. She had introduced herself gently, but with a bright spark in her eyes. She was a weaver, known among her people for her talent in creating patterns inspired by the wind and the stars. She spoke with a soft voice, but her words carried wisdom. She asked Elias thoughtful questions about his farm, his dreams, and his hopes for the future. She listened not just with interest, but with genuine understanding. Elias felt comfortable with her almost instantly, as if she understood the quiet parts of him that he rarely shared with anyone. Nayeli told him, "A home is not made only of walls or land. It is made of the hearts that live in it." Her words touched him deeply. Throughout their conversation, she smiled warmly, her eyes bright with kindness. And Elias found himself smiling too, something he did not do often. When they finished talking, Nayeli stepped back with a graceful nod. Elias watched her join her family, feeling a gentle tug inside his heart. After all the introductions were complete, the chief approached him once again. "You have met them all," the chief said. "Only you can decide if a bond has formed in your heart." We do not choose for you. We do not expect anything from you. We only offer the chance." Elias looked at the women gathered before him. They stood calmly, waiting without pressure or expectation, each showing respect for the choice he might make. He took a breath, feeling clarity settle over him. I felt a connection with one person," Elias said softly. "Her name is Nayeli." A soft hum of approval moved through the Apache group, like a warm breeze. Nayeli's eyes widened slightly in gentle surprise, but a soft smile spread across her face. The chief nodded proudly. "Nayeli is a good woman, strong in spirit and gentle in heart. If you choose to know her better, we will support this bond." Elias glanced at Nayeli, who now stepped forward with quiet grace. "I would like that," she said warmly. "Only if you wish for the same." Elias nodded, feeling a calm joy rise within him. "Yes, I would be honored." The people around them smiled, pleased that the choice came from true connection, not pressure. The ceremony of introductions came to an end, and the rest of the day became a time of peaceful celebration. Families offered blessings, shared stories, and prepared food. Even the land seemed to shine a little brighter beneath the soft afternoon sun. Elias had never expected his quiet life to change in such a beautiful way. But standing beside Nayeli, surrounded by warmth and respect, he felt something he had not felt in many years. Hope, a gentle hope that maybe his lonely days were ending. A hope that kindness had opened a new door. A hope that life still had room for joy, companionship, and new beginnings. And as the sun slowly lowered behind the distant hills, Elias understood that this moment, this peaceful gathering, was the beginning of something truly special. The sun rose gently over the open fields, touching the land with warm golden light. The Apache visitors were already awake, moving quietly as they prepared for another peaceful day. Elias stepped out of his cabin with a calm heart, still amazed by everything that had happened over the last 2 days. His life had been simple and lonely for so long that it still felt unreal to have so many people around, sharing laughter, stories, and kindness. But the thing that filled his thoughts the most was Nayeli. He hadn't been able to sleep much during the night. Not because he was troubled, but because a warm feeling had settled inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. Hope, possibility, a gentle excitement that made the future feel brighter than he had ever imagined it could be. Taza, whose leg now looked much better, walked toward Elias with a steady step. He used the walking stick less now, moving more freely with each passing hour. He smiled when he reached him. "Today is a new beginning for you," Taza said kindly. Elias felt his face warm. "I still can't believe any of this is happening," he admitted. "Just 2 days ago, it was only me and the quiet." Taza nodded. "The quiet has its place, but so does companionship. My father believes that when two hearts meet with honesty, the land itself becomes brighter." Elias glanced at the Apache camp, where families prepared breakfast and children played softly near their parents. It was a beautiful sight, full of connection, life, and harmony. Not long after, Chief DeSotoha approached with his calm, steady steps. His face held a gentle smile, the kind that made a person feel at ease even before he spoke. "Elias," the chief said warmly, "today we honor your choice. You have shown good judgment and respect in all you have done." Elias bowed his head slightly, still humbled by the chief's presence. "Thank you. I only followed what felt right in my heart." The chief nodded approvingly. "That is the strongest guide a person can have." He stepped aside, and Nayeli appeared from behind him, walking with grace and quiet confidence. She carried a small basket full of handmade items, simple gifts from her family, to show their support for the bond forming between her and Elias. Nayeli smiled softly, her eyes warm and sincere. Elias felt his heart lift. Her presence had a calming effect, as though she brought with her a breeze of gentle hope. "I made these during the night," she said, showing him small woven cloths, beaded patterns, and little charms shaped like leaves and stars. "These are for your home. I wanted your place to feel a little brighter." Elias touched the cloth gently. You already made it brighter by being here, he said without thinking. Nayeli's cheeks warmed, and she lowered her gaze with a shy smile. You speak kindly. The chief lifted his voice so the gathered families could hear. It was not loud, but it carried the weight of wisdom and calm authority. Today, we celebrate the connection between Elias and Nayeli, he said. Not as a demand, not as a duty, but as a choice made from the heart. They will walk forward with respect, care, and understanding. A soft cheer rose from the people, not loud or wild, but full of gentle warmth. It felt like a blessing carried by the wind. The Apache visitors formed a circle around Elias and Nayeli. In the center, the chief placed a small blanket decorated with patterns that symbolized harmony, new beginnings, and unity. He invited Elias and Nayeli to step onto it. As they stood side by side, Elias felt a calm certainty settle inside him. He had lived so long with silence and loneliness that he had forgotten what companionship felt like, how comforting it was to have someone stand beside you, supporting you and sharing the same view of the world. Nayeli reached for his hand, gently threading her fingers with his. Her touch was warm and steady. You do not walk alone anymore, she whispered. Elias swallowed softly, moved by her words. And neither do you. The chief blessed their bond with thoughtful words, speaking slowly so each syllable carried meaning. He talked about working together, listening to each other, and building a life based on trust and respect. It was not a binding ceremony, nothing strict or final, but rather an invitation to grow side by side. A promise of companionship, not obligation. After the blessing, the Apache community shared a meal in celebration. Laughter floated through the air, blending with the soft sounds of nature. Children brought small gifts to Elias, carved wooden animals, colorful stones, braided strings. He accepted each one with gratitude, feeling more welcome than he had in years. Throughout the day, Nayeli stayed close to him. They walked around the farm together, exploring the fields and the little creek that passed behind the cabin. Nayeli admired the land, touching the plants gently and studying the way the wind shaped the grass. You take good care of this place, she said. Elias nodded. It's all I had for a long time. But it never felt complete. Not every home is complete right away, Nayeli replied. Sometimes it waits for the right people to arrive. Elias looked at her, feeling the truth in her words. Then maybe this home was waiting for you, he said softly. Nayeli smiled, her eyes filled with quiet joy. And maybe I was waiting for a place like this. As the afternoon continued, the Apache visitors helped Elias with small tasks around the farm. They repaired a fence that had been leaning for years, cleaned fallen branches near the barn, and showed him new ways to spot good planting soil. Their teamwork brought a new kind of energy to the land. For the first time in many seasons, Elias could imagine future harvests, feeling less lonely. By evening, the celebration grew quieter. Families sat on blankets, sharing stories with soft voices. The sky turned pink, then orange, and finally a deep purple, sprinkled with stars. The chief approached Elias once more. We will return to our village tomorrow, he said. But the bond you formed today is strong. Nayeli may choose to stay here with you, or you may choose to visit us often. Our door is open to you. Elias nodded gratefully. You have shown me more kindness than I ever expected. You showed it first, the chief replied with a warm smile. Kindness travels like a circle, it always returns. The chief stepped away, leaving Elias and Nayeli beside the quiet glow of the evening fire. They sat together, watching the stars rise. You must feel strange, Nayeli said gently. Your life changed so quickly. It does feel strange, Elias admitted, but in a good way. I feel hopeful, like something new has begun. Nayeli scooted a little closer, her voice soft. New beginnings often come from unexpected moments. Elias looked at her with a peaceful smile. And you are the most unexpected blessing of all. Nayeli's eyes shone softly. Then we walk forward together? Yes, Elias said, taking her hand once more. Together, The stars sparkled above them, and the night wrapped around the land like a warm blanket. The once lonely farm now felt alive with laughter, friendship, family, and the promise of a beautiful future. As the fire crackled gently beside them, Elias understood something clearly. A simple act of kindness had changed everything. It had brought people into his life. It had brought warmth into his home. And most importantly, it had brought Nayeli someone who understood his quiet heart. And with her, a new beginning, filled with companionship, hope, and lasting peace. And so, under the wide-open sky, Elias and Nayeli began the first steps of their shared journey, not rushed, not pressured, but steady, gentle, and full of possibility.